Hello, Dr. Hubble. Today I'm going to give a speech on why we should support and produce genetically modified food. So, how do you feel when you're absolutely starving and there's no food around for you to eat? So this could actually be a potential future for everyone you know. So just to give a little bit of credibility on genetically modified food in my background, I'm currently a biochemistry major, and this is my third year attending New Mexico State University. I've also been working in a lab which works with transgenic chili, alfalfa, and tobacco. So the demand for food is constantly growing, but this can actually be satisfied with genetically modified food. So today I'd like to talk to you about why genetically modified food is good, and then why you should support genetically modified food being used in the agricultural industry. So just to preview my points, so why do we need GMOs in agriculture? And how can you better educate your community on the topic of genetically modified food? And lastly, what would a future look like with the continued use and support of genetically modified food? So I'd like to begin by telling you the need for genetically modified food and why we need it. So people around the world, but also in this country, need genetically modified food in order to feed their families. The problem is the population is continuing to grow, but farms are continuing to shrink. So if more countries around the world started using genetically modified food, less people around the world would starve. According to the World Health Association, more than 3.7 billion people around the world are starving and malnourished, which is the largest in history. So most people in the United States think that genetically modified food can cause diseases such as cancer. However, this is untrue. Anti-GMO activists in the United States lobby lawmakers and also lobby for oversights and sue biotechs in court. They also manipulate information and don't use research to back up their arguments. So you can actually choose to eat genetically modified food and support their use, because the use of genetically modified food in the food industry is actually very important. So in the United States, again, the majority of people have the negative connotation that genetically modified food is unhealthy and bad. However, GMOs can actually reduce the amount of pesticides that farmers use, which can positively impact the environment, because often farmers have the advantages of genetically enhanced resistance to herbicides and insects. So I would just like to refer to this excerpt, and it's a poem by Julian Blackwell, and it's entitled "The Last Meal in the Ghetto." And so it displays the difficulty of a woman trying to feed her family. So the poem goes, "Mother, you must eat. No, it's for you. A slice of bread, half a potato, mother pushes it away, divides it evenly between us children." This moving poem displays the difficulty of a woman trying to feed her children in a different country. So you might be asking, well, how can I support the use of genetically modified food in my community? So educating your community about genetically modified food can help support its use. American citizens being educated on the topic of genetically modified organisms can actually be beneficial for pro-GMO. A better education on this topic helps individuals understand that genetically modified food actually has more benefits than harmful effects. So you can do this by going to community events and going to schools and spreading the word that genetically modified food is actually a good thing. So you can prepare a speech and visit a school, talk to students, and educate them on this topic. You can also educate your peers by showing them there is no evidence linked to health risks from genetically modified food. So now let's look at what may happen if you choose to support the use of GMOs in food. GMOs can be very beneficial, and they can not only supply food for the world, but they also positively impact many different aspects of the world. So if you support GMOs and you continue to eat them, less people around the world would likely starve to death. Future generations will have enough food and not have to worry about the supply of food. And not only can genetically modified food help hunger, but it can also help the economy. A recent study done by the National Center for Food and Agriculture says that farmers in the United States, when they invest in biotech products, they harvest 5.3 billion additional pounds of crops, and they have a 22 billion increased income. So lastly, because farmers have this increased income, they can also increase their production rate, increase their farms, and this is also a positive impact because currently in the United States farms are slowly shrinking. So the problem arises with the negative connotation of genetically modified food is listening to anti-GMO activists, and you don't research their arguments, and you don't find any research behind it that actually supports what they're saying. So if you actually educate yourself and you go out and find research that actually says that genetically modified food is actually a good thing. So in conclusion, we talked about making a difference through the use of genetically modified organisms. And so as you can easily see, GMOs actually have a positive impact on the world rather than a negative impact. I've told you about the need for genetically modified food in agriculture because it supplies more food for the world, especially for our growing population, and how you can better educate your community on this topic because genetically modified food has that negative aspect, and that negative connotation that it's bad, but it's actually not. And I've talked about what a continued future would look like with the use of genetically modified organisms. So again, what if the food supply became so low that there's not enough food to feed your family? So with the use of genetically modified organisms, this future is less likely. So in order to prevent a starving future, we need to continue to use genetically modified food. So thank you so much, Dr. Hubble.